Penny. Welcome to another episode of the Under the Influence podcast in our Somm series. I think a lot of our watchers have seen you running around different parts of the continent, training on the back of a game drive vehicle, in restaurants, hotels. Yeah. First of all, it's quite cool to officially thank you for all that amazing work that you do for us and for the learners out there. But yeah, I mean, the Somm series was actually a request from our learners on the poll we did on our university WhatsApp group.
Yeah,
kind of
I
seeing
saw
like
that.
what do you want to hear, So yeah, I think maybe not everyone knows your background, but you are certainly the most qualified team member of Under the Influence, having been a qualified Somm, working for Chef's Warehouse, having your own wine bar. Where did that journey start? How did you end up in this world of hospitality and wine?
A very simple answer to that is just the love of wine and and having a glass.
I like it. I need to be close to it.
Exactly. And how can I find a way to get paid for drinking my wine? So
Brilliant.
It's kind of where it started. Well, yeah, in a nutshell.
So it started with passion. It's a passion subject for you.
Yeah. So, yeah, just with a little bit of my background, I mean, wine is not what I initially studied. A lot of us go a little bit wayward when you're doing a bachelor's degree. Everything goes. So I've actually got a background in politics.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So studied politics, but while I was studying, of course, you need to sort of subsidize your student lifestyle. So I used to work at a restaurant in Grahamstown. And I remember one day my boss then just passed me a glass of wine that was in a glass and came out of a glass bottle and said, well,
It's quite unique as a student in Rhodes University, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, especially at this point. I mean, we had a group of friends known as the semi-sweets. We used to enjoy our 5-liter box wine.
Nothing wrong.
Yeah, so this was now proper wine in a glass. And she passed me the glass and said, well, you know what? You can't sell something if you don't know the product. And I think that's where it started.
Brilliant. And so then how did that shape from there? I mean, was it a wine? Did the wine in the glass taste good? Did it taste too sour? How did you kind of go from that first rung, which all of us start with sweet things, and kind of move up the ladder?
I think at that point I wasn't thinking about the taste. It was more the novelty that I'm actually drinking wine that comes from a glass bottle. But the taste of it was also just different. And that's where I think the curious mind in me was just like, oh, okay. So coming from the semi-sweet to this, like, let's see what this is about. And after that, I used to come to Cape Town quite a bit. We'll jump on a bus and do a 14-hour drive to Cape Town. My sister used to live here, so of course we're in the capital of wine. So I had the opportunity to also taste different types of wines every time we came to Cape Town. And I worked at a restaurant called Savoy Cabbage, which was quite an institution here in Cape Town. And the manager there was very, very passionate about wine. After shift, he would pour us a little glass. And I think it was just from there, I was just like, yeah, this just seems like something I need to be in. So a lot of it's self-taught, like most things, especially in hospitality. Once you've got the passion to do it, a lot of it will be self-taught. So it was just tasting, visiting farms, that type of thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think I've also got fond memories of, being a waiter and kind of having those aha moments from various angles. I mean, I was lucky enough to kind of stumble into wine because my folks, cashed in their pension and bought a small wine farm, which is guaranteed that the children are free labor and kind of like in tasting rooms and in cellars. So that was the interest lay. But then kind of also seeing in a restaurant environment how you can connect with guests on the subject, because it's your interaction, as a wine steward or waiter. It's often around drinks, and you're the first person that's at the table, still sparkling. How about a glass of wine to start your meal? You've got that kind of ice breaking moment. And then I kind of just noticed personally how you can create a moment for guests with the right suggestions, and then at the same time it kind of also had an impact, because I was studying at the time, impact on the bank balance when you can suggest a great bottle of wine rather than Heineken.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
your 10% seems so much better.
Big time, big time. And then, so you were a wine steward, and that was basically self-taught. How did you kind of take that next step, and like from a study perspective?
So that next step happened when I moved to Chef's Warehouse, where I subsequently then worked for about 8 years. But while I was at Chef's Warehouse, Liam at that time, which is every Somm's dream, he just said, look, I know how to do food. I know nothing about wine. You've got carte blanche. Just go ahead and do whatever you want. Yeah, so that was like, oh, okay. So, while we were choosing wines for the list, something came up, which was Piwosa. So Piwosa, basically, they deal with women in wine, and in particular, women of color in the wine industry, where they offer bursaries with WSET. So your level 1 and 2 would be offered as a bursary. So I thought, you know what, why not? Now that I've done a bit of self-teaching, maybe let's just back this up with a little bit of paperwork, which Brilliant. We all know you need at some point.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, because I kind of, it's like street smarts versus book smarts, right? And I think you learn so much just by being in an environment around other people, in front of guests, but like that, certainly like that practical and theoretical knowledge that you gain from studying really, really helps. Now it makes sense to me, because Piwosa, obviously it's the premium independent wineries of South Africa, and that's Alex Dale from Radfordale being a big driving force.
Exactly.
And he is definitely the one who said, I need to chat to you. So there's been a few connections, I think probably through Elle over the years. So then taking that knowledge and experience, being a Group Somm for a company like Chef's Warehouse, they've got Tali, they've got a whole bunch of different restaurants, like different types of cuisine. That must be really exciting from a pairing perspective, because it's you've got sort of more Indian food, then you've got like the different more European, even Asian kind of inspired. How did you go about selecting wines for that type of offering?
I think one of the things right in the beginning that we also decided, fine dining in Cape Town 10 plus years ago was very limited. And, people were still like, oh, if I go fine dining, I need to have a good French wine. And, like the South African wine industry wasn't quite tops where it was, where we are now. So the first decision was that we are just going to serve local wines at all the chefs' warehouses. And just within that itself, what you discovered that there was so much that was so untapped. And it actually made the work easier. The food was there, but it was just to find all of these different wines. There was so much that was around. So it actually wasn't as difficult as it seems. Yeah.
And were you looking for wines based on the food exclusively, or was it also like stories that resonated with you? It's almost like it is like creating a work of art, a wine menu, but it's obviously also very practical. Looking at the food that you have to be practical in terms of pairing. Yeah, how did you kind of go about putting together a wine list?
So I always say, food and wine pairing is subjective. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with food and wine pairing. So when I was looking at pairing something, it was more the story. So where is this wine coming from, and where is this product in terms of the food coming from, and how are we marrying two local ingredients together in the best possible way? So we were looking for, I guess, the garagistes, like the smaller farms that were trying to get their names, like, on the scene. So that's what we were looking for, because that's where the story would be that we were telling. If you get foreigners that are coming in, we wanted them to taste something different, to taste like the essence of South Africa, both in food and also with the wine. So that's sort of where the mind went when I'd be doing a food and wine pairing.
I love it. Yeah, and there's so many of these amazing small vineyards, and also having grown up on a small vineyard, it's so difficult to get attention because you're competing against these, big wine companies that can like sponsor umbrellas and but that's why I think restaurants like Chef's Warehouse Group and Liam and yourself have really like highlighted a lot of these smaller producers in the industry, which is so special.
No, it's been a lot of fun.
And Penny, just from a practical perspective, we, as you do, we go around and we train, we educate across Africa. What are some of the like tips that you can think of from a wine somm perspective? I've spoken a lot this year about the pre-service meeting, like being prepared, understanding menus, kind of having something in mind when you approach a table versus just dropping a menu. I also love to talk about the aperitif, that first moment that you have to build trust and, suggest something that is not going to break the bank, but at the same time, will over-deliver. What are some techniques that you use to start off an engagement with a guest?
I think maybe I'll start with the pre-service meetings. It doesn't seem like much, but it actually probably is one of the most important things that you can do before you start either a service in a restaurant or just before you approach a guest, if you're in a lodge or your hotels. If you, what is it that we always say, the 5 Ps,
yes,
right?
Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Yeah, you said that. So I always forget to put them in the proper sequence. So we'll just let that go, the 5 Ps. So if you prepared beforehand, you're talking to the staff, if you're the management team, get the staff to understand, okay, for example, in a restaurant, how many bookings do we have? Do we have return clients that are coming? What do we know about the return clients? Has the chef changed anything on the menu? If so, what dishes, for example, have your allergies? Find out which dishes has nuts in it, or if someone's gluten, all of those things. So in your pre-service meetings, those are the things that you should be discussing, so that when you do start service and you approach a guest and they throw it at you and they say, gluten intolerant, you just don't stand there and kind of stare into their beautiful blue eyes, but you already know what it is that, you can say. And then this then lies into the first contact that you're going to have, with the guest. So you've already done your pre-service, what wines, for example, your aperitif style wines that you want to serve. Say, we all know bubbly doesn't last more than a day. So if you've opened that bubbly at lunchtime, you kind of know that you need to finish it by dinner time. So if you know this information already, you see a guest, you'll be like, oh yeah, welcome, you're celebrating a birthday, how about maybe a glass of MCC, that type of thing. So that's following through into the pre-service meeting, into what you're also going to be offering as an aperitif.
Brilliant. I think it's just centering yourself. It's the proper preparation, but also kind of having the mindset to go into service. Like Leroy was just talking about, like having a hype session, being positive, like sharing information in a positive way. Good luck with service. These are the wines we're going to be looking at this evening.
Yeah.
Make sure to approach your guests. Let's just make sure we seating guests on arrival. Whatever the thing is that creates that positive energy and momentum. Yeah, I love the idea of a pre-service meeting being like a mini training or coaching session.
No, definitely. I mean, I always joke that with having studied politics, diplomacy, and international relations, that I used to use it quite a bit at the restaurant.
Every day.
Especially our front of house and the chef and the guests that you're getting in. It's always a tethering.
It's a lot to juggle.
Yeah, exactly.
And what kind of questions did you ask guests, just to kind of engage with them and get a sense of who they were? I mean, it's often you kind of need to read the situation before. So if you coming up to a table and chatting to them or greeting, if everyone turns and looks relaxed and wants to engage versus the carrying on chatting, they're in a meeting or they're having some whatever it might be. How did you kind of deal with that and, look to kind of ask questions or create that first impression?
So with Cape Town being quite a cosmopolitan city, and also with us having a lot of, I guess, foreigners or tourists, the first obvious thing is just like, hey, where are you from?
Where you from, folks?
Yeah. But that in itself also, I mean, people from different countries also react differently. It's like, you can also say like your Sauvignon Blanc and your wooded Chardonnay are two different things. And people are also like that, Some countries, they love to talk a lot. Others are just like, what, just give me my wine and keep quiet, type of thing. So you, like you said, you read the story, you ask them where you're from, that already starts. People like talking about themselves. So as soon as you ask the questions, they'll tell you. And from there, you can start deducing. It's like, oh, okay, you come from Europe, so maybe I should be suggesting maybe the more elegant styles of wine. Oh, you coming from the States. Okay, you guys
need something a bit more
robust, a little bit more
yeah.
chunky and robust and things like that. So one thing sometimes, if a guest also didn't know what they wanted to drink, very simple question would be to ask, how do you like your coffee?
That's a good one.
So it's just like, if someone prefers lattes, for example, then you know that they're more keen to drink a Chardonnay. If someone prefers to have a double shot strong espresso, then you know that they can handle tannins. So you're going to suggest more robust wines. So just, it's simple things like that.
That's a good one. I never actually thought of that. That's really good. Then I'm definitely a Cabernet Sauvignon person. It's like black
I've seen you drink your espressos.
And something I haven't actually asked before, but we always talk about, when things go well, you make a good impression and, pairings. But what happens, how do you deal with difficult guests? How do you deal with complaints or a bad situation?
Smile and wave.
I mean, it's obviously, it's never happened to you before.
No. Look, it does happen. You're always going to have that one guest that just decides that, you know what?
I choose war.
Today is the day just for you. The best way, I mean, again, the diplomacy part comes in. Just the less you try and explain your mistake, the better. Because if you feel now that you also need to challenge the mistake, say, for example, someone tells you, well, this wine is corked. And I can smell and I know that it's definitely not corked. Don't sit at the table and try to start arguing with the guest. You just take it away, bring back another one. If you sell that wine by the glass, then you can just simply use it to sell by the glass. And in some kitchens, they also use wine to cook. So, you can just tell your manager, it's like, look, there's nothing much I can do. This guest has insisted that this wine is off. And you find a way to deal with it behind. So
compliment them on their incredible nose and palate.
Exactly. Guest is always right.
Yeah. That's brilliant. And when it came to kind of introducing pairings, the aperitif, you've created that impression, you've got guests maybe finishing that Sauvignon Blanc or glass of bubbles. At what point do you go and speak to them about wine and pairing in the next course? Because that timing must be tricky in a busy restaurant.
So once you always find that guests, as soon as they have their first drink, they're already relaxed. So when you're talking about food and wine pairing, you get them while they're still having their aperitif, not when it's finished, because then it seems like now you're starting a whole other conversation. So just find out, first of all, actually find out if they want a food and wine pairing. Some guests would just be like, I drink Cabernet Sauvignon and that's what I want. It doesn't matter if I'm having that delicate little ceviche. They want their Cabernet Sauvignon. And you're not trying to push something. A food and wine pairing is a suggestion. It's not a given that it needs to happen. So first find out if they want to actually have a food and wine pairing.
Mm-hmm.
And if they say they do want a food and wine pairing, go with the general rule of thumb. If they're having meat, let's start looking at your red wines. If they're having white meat or sort of salad or lighter things, then let's start looking at wines that are lighter and along those lines. And it's about having a conversation and guiding your guest and yourself through the whole process. So if they're having a salad, you'd be like, well, may I suggest a lovely fruity Sauvignon Blanc? If they go, well, I don't drink Sauvignon Blanc, then perhaps an unwooded Chardonnay or an unwooded Chenin Blanc, because it's still on the lighter side. So it's just about you having the conversation with your guest is what ties you, and for them to also then have the confidence to trust you through the rest of the meal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think building that trust is so crucial. I like that. I like that concept also of kind of figuring out if they're food and wine pairing people, or because I would probably say now, and because I know myself, because I like to choose the wine and then hope that the food works, or at least choose things that might work, because I just love to enjoy a good bottle of wine with someone, and then you kind of really get into grips with like a wine, if you're having a few glasses. And then other people just want to have, like little taste experiences where they just every single dish is smaller. So I think that's really, really good advice. And then you can also kind of get a sense of the person, are they just relaxed and they know what they want and they want to have that wine and just enjoy the meal, or are they in for the full shebang? Because I think often when I've gone for a full pairing menu, it's maybe been with Nix and I want to impress her on like a great date, and then it's actually a ceremony. You're putting on a show, and you've got to kind of make sure that whole show runs seamlessly.
Yeah, no, true. And also, I mean, whatever you are going to be suggesting, this is where the preparation also comes in, and your pre-service meetings. Also know what it is that you're suggesting. You don't want to arrive at the table and be like, well, this is Cabernet Sauvignon. And then, someone's asking, where's it from? And then you absolutely have no idea. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's just another thing that I can add on. If you are doing the suggesting, even when you're doing the food and wine pairing, just know a little bit of something about what it is that you're serving. Like you said, it's a show. So also be the storyteller, be part of the show, and not just like, okay, well.
Yeah, and I think the rule of thumb for me is like the best case scenario is you do know the wine, the people, the place, a little bit of a story behind it. You should know the flavor characteristics, the blend. If it's a rush, if you're stressing out and you haven't necessarily had the chance to prepare, then at least know the region. So you can talk about, you've got this wine coming, it's from Elgin. You've got this wine coming, it's from the Simonsberg. You can at least talk about that region, that terroir, that characteristic of the wine, without necessarily knowing the name of the dog of the winemaker.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that definitely works. Yeah.
Awesome, Penny. And then, just from your side, I know you have these chats when you're out in various parts of the continent, but if you could give someone advice on, how to build a career as a sommelier. We've got this learning journey, and some learners are in level 1, level 2, others have completed their wine advisor course, which is like a junior somm course. There's WSET. There's so many things out there, but how do you, what advice would you give someone who wants to just continue and grow in this path?
Well, being in hospitality itself it's tough. I think we all know that. So the passion needs to be there. You just can't start on this journey just for the sake of, if that kind of makes sense. So my advice is, like with everything in life, slow and steady. Just, and don't be afraid, especially if you also have access in your lodges or in your restaurants, to speak to your chefs and things like that, because when we're tasting wine, when we're talking about all of these flavors, blueberries and that, you don't always find these fruit profiles in every different region. So it's about you just go. I mean, I used to do that at the restaurant. I literally would go behind in the kitchen and just taste spices, and that was just me, kind of just building a library for myself. So don't be stuck to just, okay, I only work in the bar and then that's it. In order for you to be able to grow a career as a Somm or just in hospitality in general, it's just you need to open up your blinkers and think a little bit more widely. Yeah, like we say, even in some of my management positions, I would, if you ask me to go to the bathroom and clean the toilet, I would be cleaning the toilet. If you ask me to sweep the floor, so nothing should be, you shouldn't see yourself as being too big for anything. Always stay humble. And that's the way you can just, grow yourself as you go through your journey.
I think kind of linked to what you're saying, you can't do it yourself. You need to, I think behind every great Somm is a relationship between the Somm and the chef, where you can chat to the chef, talk about ingredients, maybe ask the management for permission, if there's a little bit of wine left, just to taste that wine with the dishes to kind of make sure that it works. It's amazing what food and wine pairing does, where you talk about, oh, well, this will work well with this dish, but then actually if you go and taste the sauces and the spicing of the dish, it might not work.
It's totally different.
So for the chef to understand that and for you to understand that together, and then also take others with you. I find in hospitality, if you've got a few interested individuals in a team, you kind of push yourself, you ask questions, you learn together. I mean, I think that also helps. You definitely have an amazing community of interested and passionate wine people in Cape Town. I've also noticed that you've fostered this group where I think you guys get so excited when you taste wines together, and then that passion kind of is also shared.
Yeah, it's about creating a village, because it's not just one person who's going to succeed. We're trying to get the whole industry to succeed, and for us to be seen on the same level with a lot of international spaces. So not one person is going to do that. It's going to be a whole lot of us. The same way, if you in a lodge, it's not just you that's giving a guest experience, it's the whole team that's giving a guest experience. So, and becoming a team player also allows you to also move up the ranks, I guess, as one may say.
Brilliant, Penny. Well, it's just, I think anyone that's met you, and whether it's front of house as a guest or one of our learners across the continent, is extremely grateful that they've met you. And we also excited for your new role as Group Somm at Under the Influence. Penny the Palate. Making sure that we understand the offerings that we have, the beautiful wines that we have, even more deeply, and being able to share those with guests and with customers. So thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for having me.